But before she could react, strong arms grabbed her, immobilizing her. Confusion and fear flooded her mind. Rose said to Aria, "From now on, you will be here." Aria begged, "Mom, please, don't do this." But Rose didn't change her mind. She turned away. Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Lagos, lived a man named Steve, a kind and good-hearted individual, and his pretty wife named Rose. Steve and Rose were the embodiment of love and transparency. But despite being married for over 5 years, they hadn't been able to have children. Rose desperately wanted to be a mother and had tried many times to get pregnant, but to no avail. Throughout their struggles, Steve remained steadfast, supporting and encouraging Rose even during the toughest times. One day, Rose's friend suggested an idea she hadn't considered before: adopting a child from a less privileged home. This suggestion sparked something in Rose. She thought about all the children in need of loving families and felt she could make a real difference in a child's life. Excited by the idea, Rose eagerly shared it with Steve. To her disappointment, Steve wasn't enthusiastic and urged her to wait for God's time, whatever that meant. This difference of opinion began to cause tension between them at home. Despite Dave's reluctance, Rose couldn't let go of the idea. She felt adopting was the right thing to do and didn't want to wait any longer. She persistently discussed it with Steve, trying to convince him. Although Steve remained hesitant, Rose's determination never wavered. She researched adoption agencies and continued to share her findings with Steve. Eventually, after much persistence from Rose, Steve agreed to explore the idea further. They visited adoption agencies, attended information sessions, and spoke with families who had adopted children. As they learned more about the process and met children in need of loving homes, Steve began to warm up to the idea. He saw how much it meant to Rose and recognized the love they could offer a child. After about 3 months of navigating the adoption process, they finally welcomed a beautiful 1-year-old baby girl named Aria into their home. Little Aria quickly adapted to her new family, bringing joy and laughter into their home. Rose and Steve showered her with love and care, making sure she never felt like she was missing anything from her previous life in the orphanage. In just 2 months, Aria had become an integral part of their family. One day, Rose discovered some unexpected news. She was pregnant. The news filled their home with even more happiness and excitement. Steve believed that Aria was a lucky charm for their family, as blessings seemed to follow her arrival. As Rose's pregnancy progressed, Aria eagerly awaited her new sibling's arrival, often talking to the baby in Rose's belly. The anticipation of welcoming a new baby strengthened the bond between Rose, Steve, and Aria. They spent time preparing for the baby's arrival and cherishing their moments together as a family. When Rose finally gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Cynthia, their joy knew no bounds. Aria was thrilled to become a big sister and eagerly helped Rose and Steve care for the new baby. However, after Cynthia's birth, Rose began to notice a change in Steve's behavior. It seemed like he preferred spending more time with Aria than with their newborn. Initially, Rose tried to dismiss it, thinking Steve was just ensuring Aria didn't feel left out. But as time went on, Rose couldn't shake the feelings of jealousy and anger that began to creep in. She felt hurt seeing Steve bond so closely with Aria, while she felt left to care for Cynthia on her own. Rose's jealousy only grew stronger as she observed Steve and Aria's special bond. They seemed to have a connection that Rose couldn't understand or compete with. Steve appeared more affectionate, patient, and eager to spend time with Aria than with Cynthia. Unable to contain her emotions any longer, Rose confronted Steve, accusing him of favoring Aria over Cynthia. Steve tried to reassure her that he loved both girls equally, but Rose couldn't shake her feelings of jealousy and resentment towards Aria. The tension between Rose and Aria began to affect the family dynamics. Steve confronted Rose about her cold behavior towards Aria, expressing that he loved both Aria and Cynthia equally. Rose, however, insisted that Steve should only love Cynthia, their biological daughter, and wanted Aria sent back to the orphanage, citing distrust in Aria's background. Steve reminded Rose that they both decided to adopt Aria and he refused to abandon her. Rose's ultimatum to remove Aria or face a marital rift heightened in tensions. When Rose withheld food from Aria, Steve was furious and took care of the child's needs himself. Despite attempts at reconciliation, Rose remained resolute, denying Steve intimacy and threatening to disrupt the family dynamic until Aria was removed. Seeking advice, Steve's friend Darlington suggested hiring a nanny for Aria, which Steve agreed to do, hoping to ease the household strain and ensure Aria received the care she deserved. The new nanny arrived at Steve and Rose's home, but Rose rejected her and demanded Aria be returned to the orphanage. Steve firmly refused, insisting that Aria was their daughter and would stay. Rose's anger grew, and she manipulated Cynthia into resenting Aria over the years. Despite this, Aria excelled in her studies and joined Steve's company, becoming a valuable asset while Cynthia struggled academically. One day, Cynthia called Steve to pick her up from school, insisting, despite his busy schedule, rushing to please her. Steve had a fatal car accident and he died. After his death, Rose fired Aria from the family business, which quickly fell into debt due to Rose and Cynthia's mismanagement. In a desperate attempt to save their home from repossession, Rose considered selling Aria to a brothel. Encouraged by her friend Monica, Rose met with Madame Edith, the brothel owner, and negotiated a deal, receiving 20 million naira. That night, Rose and Madame Edith planned to abduct Aria. That night, Rose surprised Aria by asking her to accompany her to visit a friend. Despite feeling exhausted from a long day walk, Aria noticed the rare kindness in her mother's tone and agreed to go along. As they arrived at their destination, Aria felt a sense of unease creeping over her, but she brushed it off, attributing it to her tiredness. Little did she know, sinister plots were brewing in the shadows. Upon entering the yard, Aria's instinct screamed danger, but before she could react, strong arms grabbed her, immobilizing her. Confusion and fear flooded her mind as she realized she was being restrained by Madame Edith's bodyguards, who were instructed to hold her firmly if she resisted. Caught off guard and outnumbered, Aria struggled to comprehend the situation unfolding before her. What had started as a seemingly innocent outing with her mother had quickly turned into a nightmare of captivity and betrayal. Rose said to Aria, "From now on, you will be here." Aria begged, "Mom, please, don't do this." But Rose didn't change her mind. She turned away while the men took Aria inside, following Madame Edith's instruction. Inside, Madame Edith delivered a harsh truth to Aria. If she wanted to regain her freedom, she needed to pay 3 times the amount that was paid for her. Aria's eyes widened in shock as the reality sank in. "My mom sold me," she exclaimed. Madam Edith confirmed her worst fears, stating firmly, "Yes, she did. So, if you want to leave, you have to walk off the money I paid for you." Aria felt a mix of betrayal and desperation as she realized the depth of her mother's actions. Aria pleaded with Madam Edith for mercy, begging to be released, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. Instead, Madam Edith instructed her to rest for the night, stating that she would begin working the next day. Feeling hopeless and trapped, Aria reluctantly obeyed and retired to her room, where she found herself sharing a space with another girl. Despite the girl's attempts to engage her in a conversation about the business, Aria remained distant and uninterested. As the night wore on, Aria's desperation reached a breaking point. In a desperate attempt to escape her death situation, she quietly slipped out of bed and tiptoed towards the door. However, her hopes were dashed as she discovered Madam Edith's bodyguards stationed everywhere, blocking any chance of escape. With nowhere to turn and no one to comfort her, Aria cried herself to sleep, her heart heavy with the weight of her newfound reality. The next day, Jack, a wealthy and fun-loving single guy, joined by his friend, stepped into Madam Edith's yard, which also served as a bar and brothel. "Mike, Richard, why didn't you guys tell me about this awesome spot in town with so much space?" Jack asked with excitement. Mike hesitated before replying, "Well, there is a reason. This place is actually for prostitutes. If you are looking to have a good time with a girl, you can find them here." As the friends chat, Aria approached them with a subdued expression, asking what drinks they would like. Richard quickly placed their order, but Jack found himself captivated by Aria's presence and beauty. Unable to tear his gaze away, he watched in silence as she walked away to fetch their drinks. Mike noticed Jack's distraction and tapped him on the shoulder, inquiring about his sudden mood. "What's the matter? How can a beautiful girl like this be in a place like this?" he wondered aloud to Mike. Chuckling, Mike replied, "Were you expecting ugly girls to be here? Well, buddy, beauty can be found anywhere, and it seems like you are quite taken with her." Jack nodded, a wistful look in his eyes. "I just feel drawn to her," he admitted. "I would love to spend the night with her." "Wait, I'm coming," Mike replied, springing into action. He quickly called the attention of Madam Edith, who promptly approached Jack. "Hi, madam. You have a nice place here," Jack remarked, trying to maintain his composure. "Thank you," Madam Edith replied with a polite nod. Jack cleared his throat, feeling a surge of nerves. "Well, I would like to spend the night with that girl," he said, pointing discreetly to Aria. Madam Edith's expression remained neutral as she responded, "She's available, but she comes at a high price. She just joined us yesterday and she's a virgin, so her fee is quite high. Can you afford it?" she inquired, her tone businesslike. "Virgin, you say?" Jack's curiosity was piqued. "Well, that's interesting. How much would it cost?" he inquired further. 3 million a night, and you must lodge here. I don't allow my girls to go out because they might run away," Madam Edith explained firmly. Jack hesitated, feeling uneasy about spending the night in such a place. "I can't spend the night here. How much would it cost for me to take her out of here?" he asked, determined to find a solution. "Sir, you can't. She will run away. Please, this is how I run my business," Madam Edith repeated, her tone unwavering. "Madam, do you know who you are talking to?" Richard interjected, his voice carrying authority. "He can buy your shop 100 times over. Name your price." Madam Edith paused, considering Richard's words carefully. 30 million a night, because if she lives here, she will run away. and I will lose the money I have spent on her. So if you can pay, then you are free to take her. She finally replied. Jack, feeling determined, countered, I will make it 40 million because I would like to spend a week with her. Madam Edith's eyes widened with surprise at Jack's offer, realizing she was dealing with someone of substantial means. Jack, are you crazy? You want to spend such a huge amount of money on a prostitute? Mike exclaimed, disbelief evident in his tone. Didn't you listen to the madam? She said she's a virgin and she just joined yesterday. She will run away if she lives here. That's to tell you she isn't happy here. That's the common sense. Can't you see the picture? Jack countered. Mike paused, considering Jack's words carefully. I guess you have a point, he admitted. But still, spending that much money seems excessive. Jack completed the transfer to Madam Edith, who instructed Aria to follow him. Tearfully, Aria complied. Walking to Jack's car, she cried silently as she followed him, her heart heavy with sorrow. Madam Edith couldn't contain her joy after Jack left with Aria. I can't believe I sealed a major deal for the first time in history, she exclaimed with satisfaction. If she likes, she can run away. I don't care. I have gotten my money back and a huge profit. She laughed triumphantly, relishing her successful transactions. As they drove away, Aria's tears continued to flow ceaselessly. Jack, one of Madam Edith's biggest customers, pulled over and asked gently, Hey, why are you crying? He attempted to wipe away her tears, but Aria recoiled, not wanting to be touched. Understanding, Jack gave her space. Maybe we should start with introductions, he suggested. I am Jack and you are. Aria remained silent, her eyes fixed on the unknown destination ahead. Jack reassured her, Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Just think of me as a friend, okay? As Jack and Aria pulled over, Richard and Mike, who were following in their car, also stopped behind them. They got out to check on Jack, asking if everything was okay. He reassured them, I'm fine guys, you can head back home. We will catch up tomorrow. Richard and Mike looked concerned but trusted his judgment. So they nodded and returned to their car, driving off into the night, leaving him and Aria alone once again. Jack respected Aria's boundaries and gave her space. He started driving again and they sat in silence for a while. After a few minutes, he spoke up again. Hey, I know you are going through a tough time, but I want you to know that you are in safe hands with me. I'm not going to hurt you or try to exploit you in any way. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here to listen. Aria looked at Jack with a mix of surprise and gratitude. She hadn't expected him to be so kind and understanding. She nodded slightly, and Jack took that as a sign to continue driving. They drove for a while longer, and eventually, Aria fell asleep, exhausted from not sleeping the previous night. Jack smiled and kept driving until he got home. When they arrived at his compound, Jack gently moved to the passenger seat to wake Aria, but instead of waking her, he saw her peacefully sleeping. So, he carefully lifted her into his arms and carried her inside to his room, where he gently placed her on the bed and covered her with a soft duvet. Hours later, Aria woke up in the middle of the night, disoriented, and found herself in a grand, elegantly furnished room. The interior was breathtakingly beautiful, with intricate designs and warm lighting that made her feel safe and comfortable. Aria got out of bed and explored the room, but Jack was nowhere to be found. She made her way downstairs, and that's when she saw him fast asleep in a chair, surrounded by papers and documents on the table. The TV remote control was still clutched in his hand, and his leg was dangling off the chair, as if he had dozed off in mid-thought. Aria couldn't help but smile at the sight. She gently lifted his leg and placed it back on the chair, making sure he was comfortable. Jack stirred slightly but didn't wake up, and Aria found herself feeling a sense of tenderness towards this stranger who had taken her in. After tidying up the papers and turning off the TV, Aria returned to bed, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. The next morning, She woke up to find Jack nowhere in the house. Just as she was starting to feel uneasy, she heard the phone ringing in the sitting room. She picked it up, and Jack's warm voice filled her ears. "Hey, I still don't know your name yet," he said with a chuckle. Aria smiled, feeling a sense of ease with this stranger. "My name is Aria," she replied. "Wow, wonderful name," Jack joked, making Aria giggle. "Please, don't run away. I'll talk to you when I return. There is food in the kitchen. Feel free to eat whatever you like. Bye for now, I have to go." Back at the office, Mike and Richard cornered Jack, curious about the previous day's event. "So, how did it go with the girl you carried home yesterday?" Mike asked, raising an eyebrow. Jack shrugged. "We haven't really talked yet. She was asleep when we got home, and I just took her to bed so she could rest." Richard's eyes widened in surprise. "Wow, Jack. You mean you didn't even try to?" Jack chuckled. "No, I didn't, and I don't intend to. It's funny, but as soon as I saw her, I developed a soft spot for her." Mike burst out laughing. "This is love at first sight." Richard joined in, teasing Jack. A man is head over heels for someone he just met yesterday. The three friends shared a hearty laugh, with Jack playfully asking them not to make fun of him. After work, Jack returned home to a pleasant surprise, the delicious aroma of food wafting through the house. He couldn't help but inhale deeply, savoring the scent of the meal Aria had prepared. As he headed upstairs to drop off his bag and change, he suddenly realized Aria was nowhere to be found. Fear crept into his mind, and he thought she might have left. He searched every room, growing increasingly frustrated and worried. Just as he was about to give up hope, Aria emerged from the kitchen, a warm smile on her face. Overjoyed to see her, he rushed forward, embracing her tightly. "I was scared. I thought you left," he exclaimed, holding her close. Aria tried to pull away, laughing, but Jack's grip was firm. After a moment, he came to his senses and apologized. "I'm so sorry. I was just overcome with joy. I thought you have gone." Aria reassured him. "No, I'm still here. Thank you for not leaving," he said, relieved. "Let me go freshen up. I will be right back." Aria smiled to herself, thinking, "Well, don't get too carried away with a stranger, Aria." As Jack returned, Aria sat down on a chair, watching him head to the kitchen to grab a snack. He called out to her, "Hey, join me," but she declined. "I've already eaten." She walked over to the dining table, her eyes locking onto Jack's, and pleaded, "I've noticed you seem friendly, sir. Please help me. I don't want to go back to that place. My mom sold me to them, and I'm not that kind of a girl." Jack's expression softened, and he joked, "Well, I won't return you on one condition. You join me and eat." Aria agreed, and they sat down together, sharing a meal. Jack couldn't help but admire her, making Aria blush with his gaze. Jack and Aria sat at the dining table, sharing a meal together. The warm light from the chandelier above made the room cozy and inviting. Aria still felt nervous, but Jack's kindness helped her relax a little. They ate in silence for a while, and then Jack began to speak. "Aria, I know you are scared, but you don't have to worry here. I'm not like the people at Madame Edith's place. I want to help you," he said softly. Aria looked at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Why do you want to help me?" she asked quietly. Jack smiled gently. "When I saw you, I felt something special. I don't know why, but I just want to see you happy and safe." Aria felt a warmth spread through her heart. It had been so long since someone cared about her. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Thank you, Jack." After dinner, Aria took the plate back to the kitchen. Jack couldn't help but continue admiring her as she walked away. When she returned to the dining table, Jack asked, "Where were we?" Aria reminded him, "We were discussing not returning me to where you brought me from." Jack held her hands and confessed, "I won't take you back there. I don't know if this sounds right or stupid, but immediately I saw you at the bar. I was drawn to you. I don't know what to call it, but I like you, or maybe I should say I love you. Aria pulled her hands away, questioning how he could love someone he barely knew or didn't know her character. Jack replied, "You are right, Aria. I just told you the truth. You mentioned your mom sold you to those people. How could a mother do that? It sounds unrealistic." Aria explained, "It's a long story. She isn't my real mom. I was adopted from an orphanage, and I don't know my real parents. But my adopted dad didn't make me feel like I wasn't his daughter. He provided everything I needed, but I lost him in a tragic accident." As Aria spoke, tears began to fall from her eyes. Jack stood up and gently wiped away her tears. "From now on, you have to be happy. You don't need to cry anymore." Aria thanked him and asked about his life. "Do you live alone in this big mansion, or did your family travel?" Jack replied, "It's a long story. I'm also an orphan, but my dad's friend raised me. One of my friend's father, Richard, is the one you saw the other day. His father and my dad were best friends. So when I lost my parents, he brought me up and handed over my father's properties to me when I came of age." Aria sympathized. "Lucky you. At least you know your parents, but I don't know mine." She started crying again, and Jack comforted her. "I have told you not to cry. I'm sorry. I couldn't hold myself back." He cleaned her tears and hugged her, and Aria felt at peace in his arms. Jack then asked, "What would you like to do, like work, business, or anything that will keep you occupied so you don't think too much?" Aria replied, "I have no money, and my certificates are in my mom's house. I can't go there." Jack reassured her, "Firstly, I will take you out tomorrow to get your clothes. Then think and tell me what you will do." Aria expressed her gratitude, but said she couldn't repay him for his generosity. "The only way you can repay me back is for you to be happy and think of something to keep your mind engaged," Jack replied. Aria smiled and Jack smiled back. Jack bid her good night as she went upstairs to sleep, while he remained downstairs doing his routine office work. However, Aria couldn't sleep, thinking of ways to keep busy without burdening Jack. Most business ideas required a significant investment, and she didn't want to take advantage of his kindness. She decided to talk to him and went downstairs, finding him asleep. She woke him up, insisting he sleep upstairs, and Jack reluctantly agreed. As they lay in bed, Jack pulled her clothes and Aria couldn't pull herself away. The next day, Jack woke up to find Aria in his arms and gently removed his hand so as not to disturb her. However, Aria woke up anyway. Jack apologized. "I didn't know when I came upstairs." Aria smiled. "It's fine. I took you here so you can sleep well." Jack chuckled and said, "Please, prepare. Let's get ready. We have a busy day ahead. We will go shopping for new clothes for you, and then we'll visit my father, Richard's father." Aria replied, "Okay, I will get ready quickly." After breakfast, they headed out to buy new clothes for Aria, as she had been wearing the same outfit since her arrival. At the boutique, Aria struggled to choose, disturbed by the high prices. Jack took matters into his own hands, selecting a few outfits and presenting them to her. Aria hesitated, insisting that they were too expensive, but Jack reassured her. "You are far more precious than any piece of clothing. You deserve to look and feel your best." His words put her at ease, and she gratefully accepted his choices. After their shopping spree, Jack took her to the salon for a hair makeover, ensuring she looked radiant and presentable. After their outing, they returned home to prepare for a visit to Richard's parents' house. Upon arrival, Aria felt a sense of serenity wash over her as she entered the warm and welcoming home. Richard greeted them with a smile and offered Aria a refreshment, but she opted for water. While Richard went to fetch her a glass of juice, Jack excused himself to visit his adopted parents upstairs. In Jack's absence, Richard brought out their family photo album, inviting Aria to browse through the memories. As she flipped through the pages, she couldn't help but chuckle at the playful antics of Mike, Richard, and Jack in their younger years. But then, her eyes landed on a photo that made her heart skip a beat. A picture of herself as a baby. Her eyes widened in wonder, and she couldn't help but ask, How? How do you have this? Richard looked at her with surprise. That's my sister, who passed away, he said, looking sad. Maria was curious. What happened to her? She asked. Richard's face was furious. She was taken by kidnappers when we were kids. Even after her parents paid the ransom, they didn't return her. It's been a long time. Maria was shocked and stood up, accidentally dropping the photo album. Just then, Jack came downstairs with his adopted parents, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The room was quiet, and Jack looked at Aria with concern. Aria, what's wrong? He asked, walking over to her. Aria pointed to the photo album on the floor. This, this is me. How can it be? Jack picked up the album and looked at the photo. Her eyes widened in shock. This is unbelievable. Could it be? Mr. and Mrs. Smith came closer, their eyes also wide with surprise. Mrs. Smith gently took the album from Jack and looked at the photo. Tears welled up in her eyes. This is our daughter. How is this possible? Aria felt a mix of emotions, confusion, hope, and fear. I was adopted. My adopted parents never told me about my real family. Could it be that I am your lost daughter? Mr. Smith, with tears streaming down his face, said, We need to find out the truth. We need to do a DNA test. Jack held Aria's hand tightly. We will do whatever it takes to find out. You are not alone in this. Aria nodded, feeling overwhelmed but also a glimmer of hope. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, everyone. The Smiths embraced Aria, their hearts filled with hope and love. Jack looked at Aria with a reassuring smile. We'll get through this together. As they prepared to take the next step in uncovering the truth, Aria felt a sense of belonging and family that she had never known before. She was no longer alone, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of hope for the future. The next day, Jack and Aria went to the hospital with the Smith family to get the DNA test done. The doctor took samples from Aria and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He told them it would take a few days to get the results. Try to stay calm, the doctor advised. I know waiting is hard, but we'll get the result as soon as possible. Jack took Aria's hand as they left the hospital. Let's keep busy while we wait, he suggested. How about we explore the city? There's a beautiful park nearby. Aria smiled. That sounds nice, I would like that. They spent the next few days exploring the city. Jack showed Aria all his favorite places. The park with its blooming flowers and chirping birds, the little cafe with the best hot chocolate, and the old bookstore filled with wonderful stories. Aria felt happier than she had in a long time. For the first time, she felt free and safe. One sunny afternoon, they sat on a bench in the park, watching the ducks swim in the pond. Aria turned to Jack, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. Thank you, Jack. You have been so kind to me. I don't know how I can ever repay you, she said softly. Jack smiled. Seeing you happy is enough for me, Aria. You don't need to repay me. Just promise me one thing. Never stop smiling. Aria laughed. I promise. A few days later, the phone rang in the Smith household. It was the hospital calling with the DNA test result. Mrs. Smith answered the phone, her hands trembling, listening quietly, then thanked the doctor and hung up. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she turned to the family. The results are in. Aria, you are our daughter. Everyone was overjoyed. Mr. Smith hugged Aria, tears streaming down his face. We have waited so long for this day, he said. Mrs. Smith hugged Aria tightly. Welcome home, my dear daughter. Jack stood back, watching the happy reunion with a smile on his face. He felt a warm glow in his heart, knowing that Aria had found her true family. That evening, the Smiths threw a small party to celebrate the reunion. They invited Jack's friends, Richard and Mike, who were thrilled to hear the good news. The house was filled with laughter, music, and joy. Richard and Mike congratulated Aria and teased Jack playfully. Looks like our Jack has found more than a friend, Richard said with a wink. Jack blushed and laughed Alright, let's focus on the party. As the night went on, Aria couldn't stop smiling. She danced with Jack, feeling lighter than ever. She was surrounded by people who cared about her, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she truly belonged. Later that night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, Aria and Jack sat together on the porch. The stars twinkled above them, and the cool night breeze felt refreshing. Thank you for everything, Jack, Aria said, her voice filled with emotion. I never thought I would find my real family, and I owe it all to you. Jack shook his head. You deserve all the happiness in the world, Aria. I'm just glad I could help. Aria looked at Jack, her heart full of gratitude and something more. She realized that Jack had become very special to her, someone she could trust and rely on. She reached out and took his hand. Jack, you have become a very important part of my life. I don't know what the future holds, but I hope we can face it together, she said softly. Jack squeezed her hand gently. I hope so too, Aria. No matter what happens, I will always be here for you. As they sat together under the stars, Aria felt a sense of peace and happiness. She had found her family, and she had found a true friend in Jack. She knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she wouldn't have to face them alone. The next morning, Aria woke up feeling refreshed and ready to start her new life. She went downstairs to find Mrs. Smith preparing breakfast. The smell of pancakes filled the air, and Aria's stomach growled. Good morning, Aria, Mrs. Smith greeted with a warm smile. I hope you are hungry. Aria laughed. Good morning, yes, I am hungry. They sat down for breakfast, and Mr. Smith joined them shortly after they talked and laughed, enjoying the simple pleasures of being together as a family. After breakfast, Jack arrived with Richard and Mike. They had planned a special outing for Aria to celebrate her new life. They decided to visit the nearby amusement park, a place filled with fun rides and games. Aria's eyes lit up with excitement as she arrived at the park. She had never been to an amusement park before, and everything looked so colorful and exciting. Where should we start? Jack asked with a grin. Aria looked around, her eyes wide with wonder. How about the Ferris wheel? They all agreed, and soon they were sitting in a Ferris wheel car, slowly rising up in the sky. Aria gasped as she saw the view from the top. The whole park spread out below them, and the city skyline was visible in the distance. This is amazing, she exclaimed. Jack smiled, enjoying her excitement. I'm glad you like it. They spent the rest of the day riding roller coasters, playing games, and eating cotton candy. Aria felt like a child again, carefree and happy. She laughed so much, her cheeks hot, and by the end of the day, she was exhausted but blissfully happy. As the sun began to set, they all gathered near the park's exit. Richard and Mike waved goodbye, promising to meet up again soon. Jack and Aria walked back to the car, their hearts full of joy. Today was the best day ever, Aria said, her eyes shining. Jack nodded. I'm glad you had fun. You deserved all the happiness in the world, Aria. As they drove home, Aria thought about how much her life had changed in such a short time. She had gone from feeling lost and alone to finding her family and a true friend. She knew that there would be challenges ahead, but with Jack by her side and the support of her newfound family, she felt ready to face anything. When they arrived home, Mr. and Mrs. Smith were waiting for them. They had prepared a special dinner to celebrate the wonderful day. They all sat down together, sharing stories and laughter. After dinner, Aria and Jack sat on the porch together, watching the stars. Aria leaned her head on Jack's shoulder, feeling content and at peace. Thank you, Jack, she whispered, for everything. Jack kissed the top of her head. You are welcome, Aria. I'm just happy to see you smile. As they sat together, Aria knew that she had found a place where she belonged. She had a family who loved her, and a friend who cared for her, and a future full of hope and possibility. And with Jack by her side, she knew that anything was possible. Back at Rose's house, the tension between Rose and her daughter Cynthia had reached its peak. Their voices echoed through the halls as they hurled hurtful insults at each other. You are nothing but a thief. Rose screamed, pointing an accusing finger at Cynthia. You stole my money. Cynthia's face flushed with anger. You ruined my life, she shouted back. You were never a good mother. You only cared about yourself and your problems. You never bothered to raise me properly or give me a decent upbringing. Rosie's face turned red with fury, but deep down, she knew there was more truth in Cynthia's words. She had always been selfish, prioritizing her own needs over her daughter's, but admitting it was too painful. So she continued to lash out. How dare you speak to me like that? Rose snapped. I'm your mother, and you will respect me. The argument ended with Cynthia storming out of the house, leaving Rose alone with her guilt and regret. Meanwhile, 3 months had passed since Aria had started living with her biological family. It had been a journey of discovery and growth. She had learned so much about her parents and Richard, and they had welcomed her with open arms. Aria felt a sense of belonging she had never known before and was grateful for the love and support they had shown her. As she settled into her new life, Aria found herself thinking about Jack less frequently, but the memories of their time together still brought a smile to her face. She knew she would always cherish the moments they shared and the support they had found in each other's arms. One day, as she was helping her mother with dinner, Aria's phone rang. She saw Jack's name on the screen, and her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't spoken to him in a while and wondered what he wanted to talk about. Hey, it's been a while. Jack's voice was filled with a hint of playfulness. You don't call me anymore. Have you forgotten about me? Aria giggled on the other end of the line. How could I ever forget you, Jack? You have been a blessing in my life. I promise to visit today. Jack's face lit up with a smile. Okay, I'll be waiting. I love you, Aria. Aria's heart skipped a beat at his words. I miss you, Jack. See you soon. As she hung up, Aria felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She hadn't seen Jack in a while, and she missed him more than she realized. She quickly finished helping her mother with dinner and got ready to visit Jack. When she arrived at Jack's house, he was waiting for her at the door with a big smile. Aria, it's good to see you, he exclaimed, pulling her into a warm hug. Aria hugged him back tightly. I have missed you. Hey, beautiful, Jack said, his eyes sparkling with affection as he welcomed Aria. I'm so glad you came to visit me. Aria blushed, feeling a little awkward. Thank you, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack led her into the living room, where they sat down. He turned to her with a romantic gaze. Aria, I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy. Aria's heart skipped a beat, but she only managed to say thank you. Jack noticed her shy response and gently took her hand. Aria, stop saying thank you. Tell me you love me back. Aria's face turned bright red, and she tried to pull her hand away. Jack, I should go. I only meant to visit for a few minutes. He held her hand firmly. No, Aria, you are not leaving yet. We need to talk. Aria looked down, her eyes welling up with tears. Jack, please understand. I have found my biological family now, and things are different. Jack's expression turned hot. Different? You mean I'm nothing to you now that you have found your real family? Aria's eyes widened in protest. No, that's not what I meant. You mean a lot to me, I promise. Jack's voice became gentle but firm. Prove it, Aria. Kiss me. No kissing. We are just friends, Jack. Aria said with a laugh. I'm not just your friend, Aria, he said, his voice firm but gentle. We are meant to be together. The universe has brought us together. If you walk away today without giving us a chance, I won't bother calling you again. I can't keep waiting forever. Jack, please don't say that. I really like and respect you, but I need some time to think, she replied. With that, she shyly ran out. Jack was upset and went upstairs to his room. Maria felt sad as she left, thinking about how he had helped her, rescuing her from the brothel, reuniting her with her parents, and supporting her without expecting anything in return. On her way, halfway through the journey, Maria asked the taxi driver to turn back. She returned to Jack's house. She entered the house, but he wasn't in the living room. She went upstairs and found him getting dressed. She apologized for entering his room without knocking. Jack, I'm so sorry to intrude, Aria said, her voice soft and gentle. I came back because I couldn't shake off the feeling that I hurt you, and I realize now that I can't imagine my life without you. Jack's expression changed from anger to surprise, and he turned to face her. Aria, what are you saying? Aria took a deep breath and let her words flow from her heart. I'm saying that I need you. I need your love, your support, and your kindness. You have been there for me through everything. And I can't repay that, but I can give you my heart. Jack's face lit up with a radiant smile, and he opened his arms, inviting her in. Aria, I love you. I have been waiting for you to realize that. Welcome home, my heart. As they hugged, he whispered playfully, can I at least get a kiss from you? Aria smiled and nodded, her eyes sparkling with affection. Yes, you can, she replied. Jack's face lit up with joy, and they shared a soft, gentle kiss, their hearts filled with love and happiness. Aria asked him, are you happy now? With a smile, his face beamed with joy. Yes, very happy. I'm on top of the world. I just want to spend the rest of the day in your arms. Not going to work today, he laughed. Aria chuckled. Better go to work because I'm returning home soon. Mom will call me. Jack teased. Well, she's also my mom now. I know how to convince her. She already knows I love you so much. Aria playfully surrendered. You win. They spent the rest of the day in each other's arms, making romantic promises and sharing sweet words. Jack whispered, I love you, Aria. You are the melody that fills my heart with joy. Aria's cheeks flushed. I love you too. You are the rhythm that makes my soul sing. They laughed and talked about their future together, dreaming of a life filled with love and happiness. As the sun set, they knew they had found something special in each other, a love that would last a lifetime. Aria returned home after a wonderful day with Jack, feeling grateful for the time they had spent together. The next morning, Jack called her, his voice filled with excitement. Aria, can you come over? I have something special to show you. Without hesitation, Aria said, yes, I'll be there soon. She quickly got dressed and set out, her heart pounding with curiosity and excitement. When she arrived at Jack's house and opened the door, she was greeted by a shower of rose petals and balloons falling from above, creating a beautiful and romantic scene. Jack stood before her, holding a stunning engagement ring, his face beaming with joy. Aria, for the moment I met you, I knew you were special, he said, his voice filled with emotion. Will you marry me? Tears of joy filled Aria's eyes as she nodded eagerly. Yes, honey, I will marry you, she replied, her voice trembling with happiness. Please, call me that again, Jack said playfully, loving the way she called him honey for the first time. Aria blushed and laughed shyly. Jack knelt down and gently placed the ring on her finger. She threw her arms around him, giving him a kiss filled with love and happiness. As they hugged, Jack whispered, I promise to always love and cherish you, Aria. You are my everything. Aria smiled, her heart overflowing with joy. I promise to always support and love you. You are my forever home. With their engagement official, Jack and Aria decided to share the wonderful news with her parents. They headed to the Smith house, excitement bubbling within them. As they entered, Aria's parents noticed the ring on her finger and exchanged a knowing glance. We are so happy for you both, Mrs. Smith said, tears of joy in her eyes. Mr. Smith's face showed a mix of emotions, happiness for Aria's newfound love, but also a tinge of sadness and possessiveness. But I feel jealous. We only reunited with her recently, and now you are taking her away from us, he said, his voice tinged with longing. Jack and Aria exchanged an understanding smile. No, Dad, Aria reassured him. I will always come to visit you. Just because I'm starting a new life with Jack doesn't mean I will forget about you and Mom. You will always be my family, and I will make sure to stay in touch regularly. Out of sight, but not out of mind. Mrs. Smith nodded in agreement, placing a comforting hand on her husband's arm. We are happy for you, Aria. We want you to be happy, and if Jack makes you happy, then we support your decision. Jack stepped forward, his eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Dad. I promise to take good care of Aria and make her happy, and I will make sure she visits you both often, so you can stay a part of each other's lives. Mr. Smith's expression softened, and he nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. I trust you, Jack. You are proving yourself to be a good man, and I know you will take care of our daughter. With their blessings, Jack and Aria began making wedding plans. They spent countless hours discussing details from the venue to the guest list, ensuring every aspect of their special day would be perfect. Aria's parents were involved every step of the way, offering their support and love. As the days passed, Aria and Jack grew even closer, their love for each other deepening with each shared moment. One evening, as Aria and Jack were together planning their wedding, Aria took a deep breath and turned to Jack, her eyes serious yet tender. Honey, before we have our wedding, I need to talk to you about something important. Jack looked at her with concern. Of course, Aria, what is it? I need to visit Steve's grave, my adopted father's grave, before we start our new life together, she said softly. Jack thought for a moment, then nodded. I understand, Aria. Take all the time you need. On a cool morning, Aria set out for the cemetery where Steve was buried, and she stood there, the headstone. She whispered, Thank you, Father. You took care of me when I needed it most. I will always be grateful. Tears streamed down her face as she remembered the kindness and love Steve had shown her. After spending some time there, she stood up and left, feeling a sense of peace. Next, she decided to visit Rose, her adopted mother, determined to forgive and make amends. Upon arrival, she was shocked to find Rose bedridden and weak. The transformation was startling. When Rose saw Aria, she began begging, Aria, forgive me. I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. Aria held her hand, tears streaming down her face. I forgive you, Mom. You sent me to the brothel, but that's where I found Jack, the man who lights up my world, and my real parents. I'm grateful. Rose's eyes widened in surprise at the mention of Aria's real parent, but she was too weak to ask for details. Aria forgave her wholeheartedly, and with Jack's support, they rushed Rose to the hospital. Despite their efforts, Rose succumbed to kidney failure. Aria was heartbroken. Before her passing, Rose made Aria promise to find Cynthia and guide her onto the right path. Determined to fulfill her promise, Aria reached out to her sister Cynthia, moved by her sister's forgiveness, returned and moved into Smith's home. Jack decided to put their wedding plans on hold, giving Aria the time and space she needed to grieve the loss of her adopted mother, Rose. He understood the depth of their bond and wanted Aria to heal and find closure before starting their new life together. During this time, Aria and Cynthia began to rebuild their relationship. They spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing memories, slowly mending the broken pieces of their past. With the support of their biological parents and Jack, the sisters grew closer, learning to trust and rely on each other. One sunny afternoon, Aria and Cynthia took a walk through the garden at the Smith home. The flowers were in full bloom, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of roses and lilies. As they strolled, Aria turned to Cynthia and said, I want you to know that I love you, Cynthia. Despite everything that happened, we are still family, and I'm here for you. Cynthia smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. I love you too, Aria. Thank you for giving me another chance. With time, Aria's heart began to heal. She found solace in the love of her family and the unwavering support of Jack. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Jack gently took her hand and asked, Do you feel ready to continue our wedding plans, Aria? Aria looked into his eyes, her heart full of love and gratitude. Yes, honey, I'm ready. Thank you for being so patient and understanding. With renewed hope and excitement, they resumed their wedding preparations. The day finally arrived, and their wedding took place in a beautiful garden, filled with vibrant flowers and a gentle breeze. Friends and family gathered to celebrate the union of Jack and Aria, their faces beaming with joy, as they exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. The love between them was palpable, and everyone present could feel the deep connection they shared. When it came time for the kiss, Jack leaned in and whispered, I love you, Aria. You are my forever. Aria smiled, her eyes glistening with tears of happiness. I love you too, Jack, forever and always. Their kiss sealed their promises, and as they walked down the aisle as husband and wife, surrounded by the cheers and well wishes of their loved ones, They knew that their journey together was just beginning. They had faced many challenges, but their love had only grown stronger. With their hearts full of hope and joy, they looked forward to the future, ready to embrace whatever came their way together. As Jack and Aria entered their home after their wedding, Jack's eyes shone bright, filled with love for Aria. He put his arm around her waist, pulling her close, and she felt a warmth in her chest. Forever and always, my love, he whispered softly, his breath gentle on her ear. His words felt like a promise, a commitment to love and care for her always. Aria smiled, feeling a bit tired. She tried to pull away, saying, I'm so tired. But Jack, not wanting the night to end just yet, playfully said, no sleep yet. He chased her through the house, their laughter filling every corner. Finally, he caught her and carried her upstairs, her laughter turning into happy sighs. He tenderly laid Aria on the bed, his fingers carefully unzipped her wedding gown. Aria's eyes sparkled with a knowing smile as she asked, what are you doing, honey? I'm doing what husbands and wives do on their wedding night, my love. He replied, his voice low and gentle. Please stop, I'm shy. Aria whispered, you don't have to be, my love. He reassured her, we are married now, and there is nothing wrong with expressing our love for each other. Jack helped Aria slip off her gown, leaving her in her undergarment. Aria covered her eyes with her hands, feeling a mix of shyness and anticipation. Meanwhile, Jack undressed completely, his naked body glowing in the soft light. He lay down beside Aria, his body inches from her. He gently requested, my love, please, remove your hands from your face. I want to see your beautiful eyes. When Aria hesitated, he tenderly took matters into his own hands, carefully removing her hands from her face and gazing lovingly into her eyes. He then leaned in and kissed her softly. Aria's hesitation melted away, and she reciprocated with happiness. They shared a tender, intimate moment, their love deepening as they celebrated their union. Months later, Mike, Jack's friend, joined Jack, Aria, and Cynthia in an outing to a park. Mike couldn't help but notice the way Cynthia cared for Aria, and he admired her strength and compassion. At first, Mark tried to brush off his feelings, thinking it wasn't the right time to pursue anything romantic. But as they continued to spend time together, he found himself falling deeper for Cynthia. He began to look forward to their outings, hoping to catch her eye and maybe even steal a smile or two. Little did Mike know, Cynthia had started to notice him too. She appreciated his kind heart, his sense of humor, and the way he always made her feel included. As they laughed and joked together, Cynthia found herself feeling drawn to Mike in ways she hadn't expected. Their connection grew stronger as they exchanged playful banter, shared secret glances, and lost themselves in conversation. It was clear to everyone around them that something special was brewing between the two. One day, Ella decided to have a heart-to-heart talk with Mike over a cup of coffee. She asked him about his feeling for Cynthia. Mike confessed that he had developed strong feelings for Cynthia and wanted to explore the possibility of a romantic relationship with her. Aria listened attentively and then had a similar conversation with Cynthia, who also expressed her interest in Mike. Cynthia shared that she had noticed Mike's kind and caring nature and that his sense of humor had won her over. She felt comfortable around him and enjoyed his company immensely. With both Mike and Cynthia on the same page, Aria was thrilled to see her sister and Mike so happy. She gave her blessing for their relationship and the two began dating, surrounded by the support of their friends. One day, while they were all out together, Jack suddenly suggested, why don't you guys get married, Mike and Cynthia? It would be amazing to share the special moment together. Mike and Cynthia looked at each other surprised but delighted by the idea. They decided to go for it. The ceremony was a beautiful mix of laughter and tears, with Richard beaming proudly as Mike and Cynthia was pronounced husband and wife. They shared tender kisses, sealing their love forever. After the reception, Mike took his new wife home and they consummated their marriage. Several months later, both Aria and Cynthia welcomed their precious babies into the world and they lived happily ever. The most important lesson in this story is the power of love and consistency. Throughout the narrative, we see how unconditional love and steadfast support shape the lives of the characters and lead them to positive outcomes. Steve's unwavering love for Aria, despite her being adopted, provided her with a strong foundation and sense of belonging. His dedication to her well-being and happiness highlighted the profound impact of a parent's unconditional love. Jack's consistent love and support played a crucial role in Aria's life. His determination to rescue her from Betrayal and help her reunite with her biological family showed how steadfast and affection and commitment can transform lives. Jack's love for Aria remained constant, guiding her through difficult times and ultimately leading to their joyful union. This story teaches us that love and consistency are powerful forces that can overcome obstacles, heal wounds, and create lasting bonds. Unconditional love, whether from a parent, partner, or friend, provides the strength and support needed to navigate life's challenges and find happiness. Thank you for watching this amazing story about Aria on African Stories. If you liked it and felt inspired with her journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.